Hello, brothers and sisters. This is Sir Eisenstein, Captain of the Iron Hands. Today, we'll be looking into the worst legendary cards in the game, why they are so bad, and how to fix them. This list has been compiled from some of the previous community surveys, my Battle Brothers feedback, and my personal experience. Now, there are many bad legendary cards in the game, but most of the cards in this list are so bad that you can't even put them in any meaningful deck. Others might be so garbage that they actually benefit the enemy, or there might be better options available that makes these cards obsolete in every single way. Before we start, original number one for the list was going to be Crucial Choice, this card over here. It was probably the worst card in the game, and my suggestion was to increase its cost and change the description slightly. Looks like the devs are listening to the feedback from the community, so if you have any suggestions, make sure to comment below. Now, starting with our list, number one is probably gonna go to the Port Mole. Now, this is a 5 energy tactic that creates new Imperial Army tactics in your hand every turn. It's relentless. Sounds fantastic. The problem starts with that Imperial Army tactics are some of the worst collection in the game. Exception for one or two cards, most of them will be rubbish or unusable in majority of the decks. Secondly, there are better options, such as the 5 energy Pyramid of Protep. Costs exactly the same, has exactly the same ability, Relentless. However, it creates a random tactic, so you will be getting Astartes and other neutral faction cards as well, on top of the possibility of getting Imperial Army. On top of that, this is a unit as well, so enemy has to physically remove it, and because it has ward, they either need to face bash it, so it will be soaking 8 damage, or simply use a card to remove it, so you will be getting much better cards, and this will be soaking up at least a card or a good number of damage from the enemy as well. If you don't like this one, there is also T-Lat that costs 1 more energy but has very similar ability again. At end of your turn resolution, it creates a random tactics, and on top of it you will be getting a fairly strong card as well. So there are already better options, and if you wanted to stick with 5 energy Relentless, go with the Forge Complex. I'm aware it doesn't create tactics, but it does create troops, and generally speaking I will take Mechanicum troops any day to Imperial Army tactics. As for making it better, I can't think of much, to be honest. Just reduce the cost to maybe 4 energy, or make it Imperial troops or tactic, so you're gonna have 50% chance of getting an Imperial troop, which most of them are quite good, or an Imperial tactic. Going to the number 2 will be Abissa in the Chaos here. Now, this card is probably the worst Greater Demon in the game. The others are, T-Lad, Softiek, Yiria, Father Decay, and Slayer of the Words. All of them are useful in some regard. Every single one you can put into majority of the decks. Then you have this one. Its ability is a Battle Honor, which is not a particularly great one, creating a copy in your hand. And in terms of the stats, the T-Lad costs 1 energy less, has the same health, and has much better ability. Softiek, much more survivable, better ability. It's just a very, very weak card. There is pretty much no point of playing it. And there's not much you can do with it though, unless you're willing to change the battle on the system or reduce the cost to 6. This is going to be a redundant card. Moving up, the number 3. This is my most hated card, probably, due to I'm being a White Scars fanboy. It will be Captain Hakim. Now, I noticed there is actually quite a bit of support for this card, that people actually likes it. But in my opinion, it's absolutely garbage. It doesn't fit to the playstyle of any White Scars warlords. And there are better options, namely the Jubak Star. Is it Starsight? This guy has the same stats, the same same energy cost, but it has resolution that you copy a random card from enemy deck, troop or tactic. Whereas if you go back to the Captain Hakim here, it steals a card, it copies a card from enemy's hand, a tactic card. So if the enemy doesn't have a tactic in their hand, you don't get to steal. Whereas Jubak guarantees to copy that card. And generally speaking, and as a White Scar as well, you want to copy a troop rather than a tactic, because I don't know, it's just frustrating card that doesn't fit to any of the Warlord style and doesn't work. And as for making it better, make it maybe, you know, take a troop or a tactic from the deck, or simply just change its stats to the 1 attack and 5 health, just to make it a bit more survivable, to, you know, make it stand out from a neutral legendary more. Number 4, Ashurax. Now, when I first saw this card, I thought this was going to be game changer, and most of the people actually played this card quite a bit when it got first released, and it just disappeared because how useless it is. It's 10 energy, so it's fairly expensive and has a great ability, 6 damage to all enemies, although on a bit of an expensive side. Now, problem starts is it only has 3 damage. You can use Ambassador Melgator just to remove it, and most of the decks going to have vehicle removal anyway, so this one just introduces an extra layer of removal. And on top of it, yes, it has a great ability, but if it gets stunned, you can't use it, and if you decide to use it, you cannot put any troops either. And what makes it redundant is this card over there, the Zerial Storm. Now, this one you cannot actually direct. It's to a random enemy, but it's much more useful in a sense that it has less of a removal chance from Ambassador Melgator. If the enemy is stealth, you're gonna deal the relentless damage. Other one deals the damage as well, but this one cannot get stunned. And on top of it, it costs 1 energy less. Might not be a deal breaker, but it's a little bit cheaper, especially you pull it off with the 3 energy supply cost. It makes it 7 energy. Just a simple overall better card to play against that has at least 2 different removal or, you know, stun ability removed in terms of the play style. And the number 5 is going to be a fairly similar card to what we just saw, the Punisher. Now this one got buffed a couple of months back in terms of what it is, and it's very similar to, again, the Zerial. Only difference is you have to spend energy, and it has a little bit more health to go with it as well. On the first glance, this might be a good substitute for the Zerial as well. I mean, you get to target, and 2 energy for targeting is not bad. But then what this makes is if enemy has ward or stealth, then it doesn't work. You cannot deal damage. But it's not a structure, so you can face bash. But the problem with this starts that it's a Sons of Horus card, where you don't really aiming for 9 energy heavy troop that you're going to be using at the 10 energy. What you're trying to do with the Horus is, generally speaking, try to finish the game as soon as possible with the Vengeful Spirit. So these 2 cards are very similar in that regard, and there's not much you can do, purely because there are other cards such as the Zerial Storm that does very similar thing at very similar state, so you can't really touch these 2, unfortunately. Moving to number 6 will be the Ultramarines Mantle of Ultramar. Here we go. So the Ultramarines' special ability is Courage. How it works is the Courage, when the enemy has more units than you, more troops, generally speaking, then you get to, activate your courage when you play it. It's like a rally ability, but only gets activated when enemy has more units, more troops. And what this card does, the Mantle of Ultramar, is it basically, to make it work, you need to have a board presence. And if you have more of a board presence than the enemy, then you cannot utilize your courage ability. And on top of that, in the current meta, it's fairly hard to have a solid board presence at 5 energy, and wasting that 5 energy for such a mediocre card is waste of resources, especially for the playstyle of the Ultramarines as well, that it's just a redundant card that I have never ever seen someone using it or using it successfully. Number 7, Forbidden Secret of the Dark Angels. This is another card that got buffed after it's released. Originally it was creating the Secret of War in your deck, similar to the Seal cards we have with the Agents of Sigillite. They change it, now it adds to your hand, but it's still a fairly weak card. There are 4 different quests you can choose for your Warlord. They range between attacking enemy Warlord, killing enemy troops, or putting high energy troops, and the last one I believe is healing your Warlord or activating quest, something along the lines like that. And the problem is, the easiest ones you can do is to attack the enemy troops or the Warlord, but that wouldn't work with the playstyle of the Dark Angels. If you are attacking enemy Warlord, and you will usually face much faster guys such as your World Eaters, your Space Wolves, White Scars, and etc. That pretty much most of the factions is going to be faster than you. So attacking them and not being able to utilize your Warlord's ability is going to hamper you quite a bit. On top of that, it will take you quite a bit until you get to complete the quest, and after that you have to spend the energy and play the Secret of the War from your hand. And to be honest, by the time you complete the quest, game is probably going to be over or being close to over soon. And it also creates a very bad habit when you're playing this card, that you prioritizing on getting the quest, even though it might cost you the game sometimes. Moving on, is we actually have 2 of from these guys, from the World Eaters. First of all, the Masir Varen. Now, on the first glance, this one doesn't really look like a bad card. It's solid stats. When a friendly troop dies, it gains 2 plus 2. The problem with it is it just doesn't sync. It doesn't work at all with the World Eaters playstyle. They are quick, fast, burn through. What this card is, you're gonna have board presence with lots of cheap troops, and then sort of just like sacrifice them or make them die, and then this guy is gonna get a better stats. You have Argus Brunt that just makes this card obsolete in any single way. It's cheaper, has much better mechanic, double the attack by taking damage, which you can trigger much more easier, that you don't have to use other troops as well. And it just simply doesn't work. It's a redundant card, unfortunately, and unless it gets a complete rework or a buff in the stats, which is unlikely, it's a redundant card. And the next up is the Gorefather, again from the World Eaters. Bear in mind, World Eaters is one of the strongest factions in the game, but in terms of legendaries, they get the short end of the stick. Now, again, at the first glance, it looks like a nice card. Your Warlord is always attacking, and this card gives your Warlord to cleave, basically to be able to clear the board much more efficiently. Now, you already get a good amount of removal cards from the World Eater decks, on top of the your neutral cards as well. So you wouldn't necessarily need that extra troop removal. And on top of that, it's 6 energy. It's quite expensive. You could play, for example, Armor of Mars in the same turn. You know, heal up, or if you wanted to, you can play the 6 energy vehicle, or simply just try to finish the game. Because what this does is it gives your warlord ability to clear the board a bit better, but then you wasted 6 energy and made the game go 1 turn longer. With these guys, you want to finish the game. With the World Eaters, you want to finish the game as soon as possible, because the period that you are stronger than all the other factions is quite narrow. As soon as you miss it, if you don't have a significant advantage or you're going for the kill, you will be struggling to finish the game, and this card just makes it makes it finishing the game just harder, and it's just doesn't worth it. You can't really do much with it again. Maybe make it cleave 3 or 4 just to make it a bit more tempting. 4 might be a bit too much. Or reduce the cost to 5 along with the Gore Childs that goes with it. And lastly, there's been a change, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, related to the crucial choice. So I had to find another one. Now there were 2 candidates, but the first candidate was actually the Bioblade, which is not a great card, but I ended up choosing the Corpse one. Now this card, when I first saw it, I thought this is going to be a game changer, and I tried to buy this card for a good while. It's 10 energy, quite expensive. It has a shield, very good stats, and the active ability is you draw a card. If it's a troop, you put it to play and give it fast, so you can face bash the enemy. Basically, potentially you can pull 3 troops, give them fast, then deal 8 damage on top of it as well. It just sounds fantastic. The problem is, if you're playing anything like 9 or 10 energy, you want something of an instant effect, or something that will scare the enemy quite a bit. With this one, you don't have any instant effect. Usually with the space rolls as well, they have a fairly fast style. You know, you usually going to try to finish the game earlier on, or if you have some of the other warlords than the Limon Russ, you might want to have, you know, cheap troops and buff them and etc. So Corpse One's ability might not work in that much great. It just too expensive, too slow, and doesn't fit the overall theme of the faction. Unfortunately, if it was for, you know, Iron Hands, for example, that have, you know, tons of strong vehicles, late tier vehicles, then it might have worked. But for the Space Wolves, their playstyle seemed redundant. And that's it for today, guys. Thank you for watching the video. If you like it, please drop a like and subscribe, as I'm very close to being recognized as an official YouTuber for the Horus Heresy Legions game. Emperor protects, and until next time.